Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. This is episode 38 of the Love and Light podcast. I'm Willie Lightfoot.
And I am Lovely Warren.
And we are the hosts of the Love and Light podcast, where we lift up the people and things we love and talk about things people don't talk about at all or don't talk about nearly enough. How you doing, sis?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Right. So, last episode we had some bloopers. This episode we having some bloopers.
Hey, but brother, that's what make us us, though, right?
You had your coffee today?
That's what make us us, because our show is authentic. We show up how we show up. Yeah. We talk how we talk. This is us. We human beings, and we have fun.
Absolutely. So last episode we talked about being courageous and sportsmanship, right?
Yes.
And we really highlighted, some stuff that was going on locally here, and talked about, how people can get up out of bed every day and what they need to do in order to do that.
Yeah, encourage them to move forward, encourage them despite fear, telling them to stop, to keep going forward. But today, I think it's a good segue into what we're going to be talking about today. But this is the Love and Light podcast, episode 38, powered by 103.9 WDKX. Before we go any further, we want to tell our listening and viewing family that we want you to text the front line at 585-678-1039. Tell us how you like the show. Give us some show topics. You can also use the open mic feature on the app to leave us a message, talk about the show. We want to hear from you. And now we typically go into our love lifting segment, where we lift up something that we love. And this month happens to be Women in History Month.
Woo-hoo.
So Women in History Month. When I think about that, and I think about the title of this show, which we're going to be talking about, local election process, right?
Listen,
local election processes.
Local election year. So last year we talked a lot about the presidential race and things that was going on. But, all politics is local.
All politics are local. And I think it being great with us lifting up Women History Month, and you broke a lot of barriers and a lot of historical things when you became mayor. So many things. Youngest African-American, but a female. You were the first and only female mayor of the city of Rochester. So by this being lifting up the Women in History Month, there are so many amazing women in our history. All right. But here locally, since we're talking about local election process, we want to lift you up.
Thank you.
And appreciate you, Queen,
I appreciate
the work that you've done, and the barriers, the ceilings that you broke down to see other young girls like Taylor and other young women and men to be inspired and encouraged by the courage that you had to go forward. And I'd like to ask you, what did that look like? What did the election process, how did that begin for you?
So, first, it began by making a decision. We talked about last time, making a decision and choice, stepping on our faith, but understanding, and having a vision, right? So, we're people of faith, and we talk about the people having, the Bible says that the without a vision, the people will perish. And so, understanding and having a vision of how you want change and execute that change, and then having the courage to step out there on faith and to talk to people about what it is that you would like to see and how you would like to bring about that change. Having mentors and having people that surrounded me, that lifted me up. Often talk about my mentor, Assemblyman David Gann, and the work that he did here in Rochester. And so that doesn't change, that never will change. And so for me, it was several different steps. But you're also in politics. So, we're talking about local elections. This year, 2025 is a local election race, a big local elections happening here locally and across the state of New York, right? You have a big mayoral election happening in New York City. We just heard that the former governor is, stepping back out there, running for mayor down in New York City. Also, Eric Adams, the current sitting mayor, is running as well. And so this is going to be interesting because it's a little bit different than in New York City than it's here, because they have ranked choice voting. And we'll talk a little bit about that. But how was it for you?
I think for me, it starts with the call, right? I think, there's a pulling inside of you when you are a part of public service or civil service. I think there has to be some type of unction, something that pushes you into making that decision. So you,
Right.
you know, you have to get, there's something that pulls on you to say, hey, you know, because you know, typically these jobs don't pay well. Typically there are a lot more work than reward sometimes, oftentimes. So there has to be some type of calling or pulling, you know, literally in your spirit to make you even want to do this stuff. But I think it started there for me. And it was a little different for me because I'm a PK kid. You know, my father was an elected official, you know, so I standing on the shoulders of the late Honorable Willie Lightfoot, who, you know, paved the way for me. And he passed away untimely while in office. He was died in office as well as Assemblyman Gant as well too. You know, so we have something in common there as far as our mentors, you know, being there all the way till they passed away. But in literally the day he died or the week he died, my name was flashed across his desk on television. So I ran my whole life from politics. I never wanted to do it because I saw what it took away from our family. And being a little kid, you don't totally understand that all the time, right? And you know, the call on your parents' life or whatever. And so I didn't understand as a little boy. So as a little boy, I didn't want nothing to do with politics because I'm like, that just makes you pull you away from your family and all of these other things. And so I did everything I could to stay away from it. And so I would think for me, it was the call, but it was also the pulling from the community, right? As a result of my father's untimely death, that literally the community goes, oh, the Willie Lightfoot passed away. And it goes, oh, his son's going to take his position. I'm like, what? I'm watching this on TV like everybody else. I'm like, who? Nobody called me. Like I didn't get asked about that, you know? And so it was kind of a push from the community, as well as the call in my life that kind of pushed me into
Absolutely. Listen, and you know, you've done it well. You're retiring this year.
I am.
You're retiring.
I'm looking for after 30 years.
After 30 years of public service.
Years with the city of Rochester as a public
servant.
Oh
my gosh.
22 years on the fire department, 8 years, Lord willing, by the end of this year on city council. So I have a combined 30 years.
Man,
that's a long time, right?
And you're still young, right?
Hey, talk.
You still got a lot of life left in you, bro.
It's just the beginning. It's on. The best is yet to come.
The best is yet to come. And you know, there is life after public service.
Is there really?
Yeah.
Like I don't think some people realize that there is life after public service.
Absolutely. You go on.
To get there, you got to start from the beginning. And in the beginning, there is a process.
Yes, and it's a lot of new people that are stepping out. You know, I mean, I've been watching from afar, you know, locally, a number of people, new time runners that are coming out, that's running for school board. So when we talk about local elections, you know, just want to talk about what types of elections that we're talking about here.
Yes.
We're located here in Rochester, New York, where WDKX is headquartered. And when you think about what's happening, you have school board that's running, you have a big mayoral race that's coming up. You also have, you know, I believe the sheriff is running. You have some local judges that will be running. You also have city council. And so which you're retiring from, I served on city council for a number of years as well. And so you have all these local elections, and we talk about politics being local. And why do we say that? Why do we say politics is local?
Because whatever's happening on the local level is typically magnified on the state and national level. So all of these government bodies typically operate within the same types of principles, so to speak, right? So the process for them all is very similar, even though they may vary based on the level of government that you go to. State government is just a little more intense, a little more requirements. And then federal government, of course, a lot more intense, a lot more requirements. But the local politics is the bare basic
and the closest to the people.
And it's the closest to the people. Because at the end of the day, people ain't from Rochester or whatever city you may be from or town you may be from. They're not going to their state elected official typically. They don't see them typically in the Walmarts or on the street or they see me and you. Like, like I run into people literally all the time,
right?
Every day. And they feel like every issue, every community issue is a local issue. It's going to become a local issue. So they don't typically decipher whether or not, oh, that's county or that's state. They figure you're an elected official, so you should know, and you work for me, and I'm going to ask you this question, and you ought to be able to help me and lead me the right way.
Absolutely.
So that's why all politics are local.
All politics is local. So the process right now, you know, we're in March, and people are out collecting signatures. So
wait, hold on. Can I just say this about that? Remember, that's changed. Remember that it wasn't, and here locally in Rochester, the petition time, which Lovey's getting ready to explain, wasn't always in March. And I think that's very important to talk about. It used to be in the spring.
Yeah.
And when it changed during the pandemic, because the state changed the calendar of a local election process, they moved it up to the coldest time of the year here locally, which first couple of years was no joke.
Listen,
getting signatures in the freezing cold.
Still now, it's challenging, right? Because you think like you have 6-8 weeks to literally collect 1,000 ballot signatures, right? So even to get on the ballot. So a lot of people talk about like, hey, I'm running for office and this, that, and other, but really you're not running until you actually get on the ballot, right? Get on the ballot. And the way that you get on the ballot is to get the requisite number of signatures. Ballot signatures, right? Keyword. So and it depended on what office you're running for, it depends on how many ballot signatures you need, right? So I think it's 10% or is it 3%? I can't remember.
It's a certain percentage.
A certain percentage
of the electoral,
the people that are registered in that party.
That's right.
Right. So right now, for example, if you're running for mayor or city council or a citywide office in the city of Rochester, you need 1,000 signatures.
1,000 ballot signatures. I'm gonna keep saying that word because we know we both been through court situations where our signatures have been challenged. I've been through court situations. I took somebody to court my first election and got them kicked off the ballot for not either having. And in that process, it's not just the signatures, it's how they're packaged. Right. It's the dates on the packaging, the time that you get it in, all of these things. A lot of people, when they say they want to run, they really don't understand all the nuances of running for a local election.
Yes. And it's also strategy, right? So, because if I'm running against you, right, I'm going to challenge your signature.
Absolutely.
Because
if you
at the end of the day, if you're not on the ballot, I don't have a race, right? So people have to think about that when they're collecting signatures. Absolutely. As you said, ballot signatures, they have to know the process. They have to know, what valid signatures mean, the date, the person's name, all the whole petition process
make a decision to run. I have to give an unction from somewhere to say it ain't just lights, camera, and action need to be right. I make a decision I'm gonna run. Then my next step is I gotta go to the Board of Elections, your local Board of Elections, declare that you want to run. Yeah. There's certain paperwork and things that have to be done with that. Then in order to run, you gotta have a committee. You gotta have money. Right. So there's a process in that too. You have to have a committee you have to designate a committee for yourself. You gotta have a bank account. You have to have a treasurer, someone that takes care of your finances, your money, all that stuff. And now you become, as a candidate, just your first step in putting your foot in the deep end to realizing how much your life is now becoming public. Right. Because right at that point is when your life now becomes, you have to disclose certain things, right?
You got disclosures, you have to have your financial reports, meaning like your committee reports done, you have to have that timeline. So it's running for office is just not, hey, I'm making a decision, I want to run.
I'm gonna be on TV and tell my issues and stuff.
Whole lot more of other behind the scenes stuff that you have to do. You have to have a committee. You got to get your campaign manager. It's interesting because I was talking to one of my friends that's running, for office in New York City, and they need 6,000 votes. I mean, it's a larger population, but they need 6,000 valid signatures to get on the ballot.
Signatures.
Signatures. Okay. They need 6,000 just to get on the ballot.
Ooh, but in perspective, because like you said, it's a larger party. They
Yeah,
got
it's a
millions
larger.
of people. So you know how people sit here, they'll sit at tops. I can imagine standing at Grand Central Station, or
standing right there, like,
you
hey,
can get a lot of
sign this, right?
Yeah, but that's a lot, though. That's a lot.
It's a lot, right?
Signature.
Especially in the wintertime.
And people and see there. To me, New York City, I felt like they made things designed more for New York City because they have boroughs. So they could get 1,000 signatures maybe in one borough, in one housing project. You know what I mean? They can get 200, 300, 400 signatures in one housing project and never have to go outside.
Yeah.
Whereas we got to knock on doors, go down streets.
Listen, you could be out there for 4 hours
and get 5 signatures.
Get 5 signatures. Well, listen,
and be freezing. I'll tell you my story about one of my volunteers that got bit by a dog.
Oh my goodness.
I felt so bad. And he was a lawyer. He ended up suing on me one, but it was a mess.
Serious?
Yeah, he never went back out again. But him and his wife went out. God bless them. They were great people, but they went to the door. The person opened the door. The dog was in the house, and the dog came out the door and it bit him.
No.
Yeah, it bit him. It bit him.
Oh my goodness. Listen,
he got
collecting
hurt.
the signatures not for the week.
It's not. It takes courage.
Absolutely.
So after I get my signatures, I package them right. I get them, and that doesn't guarantee that I'm going to be on the ballot, though, right?
No, you got to go through the process.
So now that process has to go forward.
So people are going to look at rather their ballot signatures. They're going to look at rather the dates correct, rather the person, signed 2 competing petitions, all those things you got to go through. And then, the Board of Elections decide rather you are actually going to be a candidate on that particular, on that particular line for that particular office. And then after that, that's when the real race begins, right?
So now you made it on the ballot. You have your position. Now what happens? What is that process, that election process from that point of making it on the ballot?
It's talking to voters, right?
Talking to the voters.
So you got to talk to voters. You have to make sure that you get your message out there. You have to figure out, how you're going to talk to voters. So some people do social media, some people do TV, some people, do mailings. So there's a lot of different avenues, process, that you have to go through, knocking on doors, people do events. So there's a number of different ways to get your message out there. And literally at the end of the day, it's one person, one vote. And, on election day, whether it's primary day or general election day, it's getting your people to the polls.
I remember the first city council race. You asked me, at the time, you were like, hey, I want you to run for city council. I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to do that. And then I remember it's 2017 and 21 people ran. It was only 5 seats. I think 4 were incumbents. 21 people ran for city council. And remember, if they're incumbents, most likely they're going to have the advantage of winning. And everyone was running for re-election, all the incumbents at the time. And there were 21 people and only like 13 made it on the ballot. Right? So I'm giving people a perspective of how hard it is could be to make it on the ballot.
Right.
Like it's really a big task.
21 people adventured to so go out and collect petitions, but only 13 people ultimately got enough signatures and did what they needed to do to get on the ballot.
And then in that process for 5 seats.
Yeah.
And remember, out of those 21, 4 or 5 of those people were incumbents.
Right.
So really look at, once you do the math, it was even less amount of people that were newcomers that actually made it on the ballot. And also every event that you go to talk to the voters and to convince for, and we left out a part of the process too. If you're seeking endorsements by your party that you may be affiliated with, you also have to go through their process as well too. A committee process is there for those who don't understand that. Basically, can we just explain a little bit about the committee process?
I mean, I think that we explained that before. But in order to be an endorsed candidate for a political party, like here is Democratic Party, Republican Party, you also have Work Your Families, then you have to go through a process.
Basically,
you have to meet with
peers,
their committees, right? So
which are your peers,
right?
They're on your same party,
and
they have to vote you in. And so my point I was trying to make, think of 21 people going through that process.
Yeah.
So like every committee meeting, and in this particular town, there's 10, every committee meeting you go to, everybody has to speak, gets a chance to speak. Everybody has to answer questions. And that's 21 times.
Yeah.
on top of all the other people that are running too. And so it can be a grueling process.
It's a challenging,
it really is,
process to get there, right? And you're not even getting to the election day, right? And then after that, after designation, after petitions, then primary, then general
election.
So it's definitely a process that you have to go through. And the interesting thing is, I talked about in New York City, they institute something called ranked choice voting, right? So here in Rochester, you go through your primary, and the person that gets the highest number of votes, right? So you don't need to get to 51%. You actually just need to get to the majority, right? So say there's a 5-way race and somebody gets, 41%, somebody else gets 30%. The person that gets the 41%, that person is the designated candidate to then go forward in the general election. But in New York City, they have something called ranked choice voting, where you have to get to 51%, and you have to, and when people go in, they actually are ranking, like, who I choose this person first, second, third, fourth, right? And then they do a second time, like, so you're not just voting at one time. And then it's so if nobody gets if nobody gets to 51% on that first, then they're saying, like, okay, in the second time, this is who I choose. In the third time, this is who I choose. In the fourth time, this is who I choose, right? So the person that is number one the first time could be number 4 when if they have
to the final, right. That's very interesting. Yeah, I they do some tricky stuff down here in New York City. It makes you think. Oftentimes, are they changing the rules because they want to make things more complicated?
Well, you used to have runoff elections, right? So you used to have runoffs and other things like that. So you had to have a certain percentage to now get to the runoff.
Sure.
And so even in the ranked choice voting, you have to have a certain percentage to get to the second, ranked choice voting, that second vote. But it is a little bit confusing for people because, at the end of the day, it literally can change, as things go on. So you got to talk to the people that are supporting you to say, listen, I don't care, what happens.
Vote
you
me
definitely
1, 2, 3, and 4. Vote me number. You got to vote me number 1
all
1,
the time,
2, 3,
right?
4.
Make sure, right? Don't switch up.
You gotta have you got a strategy. You have to have a plan. We talked about it in the last episode. You have to have a team, right? Your team around you, and everybody got to be on the same page and play their position. Episode 38 of the Love and Light podcast. We're talking about local election process. We just want to encourage people and educate the community on what local election process looks like. And when you start talking about running for election, when you hear people running for election, or when that person knocks on your door, especially when it's 20 below, when it's 5 below, or what I'm saying, and they knocking on your door, maybe it's kind to answer that one, to offer them some hot chocolate, and realize what they're going through in order to
warm up a little bit.
And you ain't got to vote for them, but you can at least hear them out and realize that what they have gone through to get to that point.
That's a valid point right there, where you say, like, when you sign a petition, that's not your actual vote.
That's right.
Right? When you sign a petition, you are actually saying, hey, this person can be on the ballot to be voted on, right? So sometimes people sign a petition for a person that when they go over the course of the election, they're like, oh, well, I really like that person better. So that's the person that I'm going to go in and vote for. And then I think that sometimes also, so people understand, like, just because you sign that petition doesn't mean that that's the person that you're actually gonna go in and vote for. Now, the person's petition that you sign, they hope that you go in and vote for them. But sometimes people learn through the process that, hey, listen, I mean, I might like somebody better than that.
Absolutely, especially when the petition time is so early in the process. So by the time March, April, you may have signed that petition and you don't really know a whole lot about the candidates other than just some basic information. You go, you know what, I can see why you can go on the ballot. That's fine. So remember that signing that just means you just letting them get on the ballot.
Right.
But then after time, when you start really looking and doing your research and they start getting out and really telling their platform, and in some instances there's debates, we'll see with the mayor races and some of the larger races have debates,
right?
And you may hear more information about that person, then you may decide, you know what, I kind of like the philosophy or the issues of this person, how they address things within our community. And so at the end and I believe in locally in this election, this is going to be the first time this primary where they're going to be presenting the new electronic machines.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're going to be using the new machines. I remember, we had the days where we went into a election voting machine that when you pulled the lever,
right,
the thing closed behind you, you were secure. This thing now is this electronic thing that is still enclosed, it's still private, but it's all on the touch screen on the computer type of thing.
Yeah.
It does all languages. It's kind of cool. I've had a chance to go. If you ever get a chance to go check it out, it's probably I would.
And I know that the Board of Elections have been going around in different places, bringing in new machines and things like that. So if you're interested,
or you can go down there. You can go down there to 39 West Main Street here locally in Rochester, and you can literally walk in at any time during 9 to 5 and say, "Hey, I want to try the new machine."
Okay.
And they'll show it to you. They'll take you through a mock sample vote. I think that's important too. And it's important for the voters to know that you're going to see this new machine in this primary.
So, when you're talking about elections and talking about voting, this is serious business, right? It is literally serious work for people to do. And we see what's happening on a national level. We see, and it's interesting because everything that the president is doing, he said he was going to do, right? He didn't say, he's not doing anything that he didn't say he was going to do. So that's why I encourage our listeners to pay attention. Pay attention to what people are saying. Pay attention to what people are doing. Pay attention to who speaks to the values that you have. Because when they get into that seat, right? A lot of times they're going to do the things that they say that they're going to do. And you can't, after they're there, it's too late. Now everybody's saying, I see so many people now saying oh, I wish I would have, oh, I didn't know, or yeah, I voted for him. But, but at the end of the day, you have to pay attention and recognize the strategies, the plans, and vote for the person that you has your values and is going to do what is best for not just you individually, but also for the community as a whole.
Love and Life Podcast, episode 38, local election process. I just think that people was probably like, you know what? All politicians, I remember episode, I can't remember what movie it was with Martin Lawrence, when the lady got, and she said, "You want to see a corrupt cop?" She said, "Yeah, just call the police department. Doesn't matter who answers the phone." I think people feel like that about politicians a lot of times, and they felt like whatever's coming out of their mouth, they're gonna tell you whatever they want to hear. So I think people didn't trust that what he was saying was what he was going to do, because they so used to politicians saying they're going to do stuff and then they don't do it. So I think they figured, but this was an exception to the rule where this guy, everything that he said in that Project 2025 that he was saying, he absolutely totally did. And I think people just got so used to thinking, well, ain't nothing going to change. They always saying they're going to do this. He ain't going to do nothing. And sure enough, he did everything that he said he was going to do. And you're doing absolutely correct when you say that we have to be, and when people talk about being woke, you have to be aware of everything. People are going to get ready to come to your knock on your doors and tell you all of this. Yeah, we're going to do all of this. You got to be realizing, are they actually going to do what they say they're going to do? And how is that going to impact my quality of life?
Yes.
Right? Because that's what's at the end of the day, our quality of life is being impacted by the decisions that these leaders are making all across the board. Healthcare, our social services that are being provided or not being provided, Social Security, business, small businesses, and how they're being impacted. We're seeing levels that we've never seen, immigration issues that we've never seen impacted in the way families being split apart, et cetera, that in just a few months that we've seen. So absolutely. And we hope that people will realize that when they're looking at this election this year locally, and that they'll really
they have to pay
people
attention.
are accountable.
Listen, they have to pay attention. There's a lot going on. We'll see who makes it on the ballot. It's still early. It's the middle of March. So we'll tell you guys.
And working people can come out too, right?
Every day somebody coming out.
You never know what you're going to see.
So pay attention to these local elections, because it's definitely very, very important. No matter where you live, no matter where you're at, there's a local election going on. I am Lovely Warren, and this is
Willie Lightfoot, and this is the Love and Light Podcast, episode 38, powered by
103.9 WDKX. I encourage you to
what?
Sing like nobody's listening, dance like nobody's watching, love like you've never been hurt.
And remember, family, you can't put a lampshade on the sun. Keep your light shining wherever you go. May God bless you. May God keep you.